Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Sunday, February 9th. This is episode 487 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. It is Super Bowl Sunday, Chiefs, Eagles in just a couple hours from now. But we've got some breaking New York Jets news that released earlier today, just a little bit ago, actually. Kind of started this morning into the afternoon. We got, feels like nothing official, but more and more reports and multiple confirmations that the New York Jets are going to move on from Aaron Rodgers, and a new quarterback will be under center for the Jets in 2025. We will break down all angles of that today. I don't want to waste any time, so let's dive right into today's episode. As always, for those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. For those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms, I appreciate your support. As always, here was the Jay Glazer report just a little bit ago that stated big scoopage. Aaron Rodgers flew back to New Jersey last week to meet with the Jets about his future with the team, only to be told that the team was moving on from him. If that means that he will be a June 1st designation, that allows him to sign with any team in the league on March 12th if he decides to continue to play. Given that Aaron made the effort to fly back to discuss his future, all signs point to him continuing to play. It just won't be for the Jets. I've stated many times this saying, I think a lot of Jet fans know this, right? Where there's smoke, there's fire. It felt like this was coming for a while, especially today, right? You get up this morning, you hear the Ian Rappaport report that said the New York Jets' decision on Aaron Rodgers is coming soon. And a little bit after that, you heard that it was probably going to come this week. Then about an hour after that, you got a report from Jordan Schultz that said the New York Jets are leaning toward moving on from him. You had Adam Schefter report that all signs point towards the Jets moving on from Aaron Rodgers. And then Jay Glazer with the biggest report of them all, providing some detail. Two sides have met. We've known that for a while, that the two sides have talked. They, of course, met in person, and a decision has now been made. And multiple reporters have confirmed this. Samini, Rosenblatt, Connor Hughes from the Jets beat. So just now really waiting for the next steps for Rodgers and the official announcement from the Jets and how they actually go about moving on from Rodgers and how they actually go about how Rodgers goes about moving on from the Jets as well. Like, does he play? What do they designate him June 1st, post June 1st cut? Those are all questions. Does Rodgers sign with another team? Does he just flat out retire? All of those things will now kind of be determined here, I would say, into next week and really over the next couple days as the offseason really starts to ramp up once Super Bowl 59 concludes later today and the 2024 season officially goes into the books. But I don't think this should come by much of a surprise for any Jet fan. We've talked a lot about Aaron Rodgers on this podcast. We've talked a lot about Aaron Rodgers' future and what's next, and the possibility of Rodgers coming back with a first-time head coach and a first-time general manager never really seemed realistic. So I don't think, if you're a Jet fan today, I don't think you should be surprised. I don't think you should be shocked. I've mentioned this many times. I could see both sides of the aisle. I understand both arguments. I understood the argument of, and I started to make more so of the argument over the last couple weeks of Rodgers returning. But I also see the other side of it. And the reason why I don't think this should be surprising for any Jet fan is you look at everything, and we've talked about this so much on this podcast. You look at everything that needed to happen for Aaron Rodgers to return to the Jets. It was a long list, and you had a feeling that one or a couple of the things that needed to happen would not get checked off, right? He needed to, number one, want to come back, which is still kind of unknown on the Rodgers side of things. Now, as Jay Glazer reported there, the fact that he flew out to Jersey, talked to the team, clearly shows that he had some interest in playing. Now, what's the league-wide interest on Rodgers? Because there's an overall feeling, even amongst myself, I would say, that if it's not the Jets, I don't really know if any team's going to want to take on Rodgers and all that at this point in his career, right? 41 years old, going to be 42 at the end of next season, coming off of a torn Achilles last year, not clearly the same player, everything that comes with Rodgers himself. So that'll, of course, be something we find out here eventually once free agency and the next kind of course of actions take place. But you look at everything that needed to happen, right? Rodgers needed to want to come back, number one. Then the new head coach, new general manager needed to want Rodgers back. So that's number two. He needed to take a pay cut. Number three. He also was going to need to learn a new system. Number four, right? So there was a lot that needed to happen. The pay cut and the new system being the biggest ones. Really the new system. Because Rodgers' entire career has kind of run things. And the offense that Rodgers run and the way things have taken place, especially last season, the Jets can't do that all over again. And with a first-time offensive coordinator, once that hire of Tanner Engstrand was made, it always seemed like the likelihood got significantly less with Tanner Engstrand. Because we've talked about this a lot. Everything that Tanner Engstrand does on offense is the complete opposite of what Aaron Rodgers has done on offense throughout his career, especially last season with the Jets, which we saw firsthand for 17 games. So the era of Aaron Rodgers here in New York officially feels like it's over. And I don't disagree with this move. I saw both sides of it. I really wasn't going to be upset either way. I wasn't. If Rodgers comes back, I could understand that. I could understand the idea of that's probably going to be your best option in 2025. I could understand if all of those things lined up, right? Also wanting him to participate in all the offseason activities, which we heard that Aaron Glenn reportedly wanted that in his quarterback. I could understand that, and I would have been on board with that. I'm also understand this. I understand the fact that Rodgers comes with a lot of baggage. The New York Jets eventually are going to have to move on. It's either 1 year with Rodgers or you're going to have to move on next year. And you can kind of start that process of just laying your own foundation and not having the whole Aaron Rodgers, his personality, the kind of the remnants of 2023, 2024 still hanging over this team. If you just start right now, take on the dead cat, move on, as opposed to, in a way, kicking the can down the road for another year, running it back with him, and then next year you're kind of in the same spot where dead cat pops up, all that stuff. Now, he would have had to restructure anyway, but instead of even going down that path, the Jets choose to just cut bait now, move on, and start fresh. And start fresh where a rookie head coach and a rookie general manager will get the quarterback that they want in 2025 to bridge their choice, right? They did not bring in Aaron Rodgers. That was Douglas and Saleh. That was the previous regime. So they get their guy that they want for 2025, their bridge option. And then they'll get, ideally, you find your future option, or you have some rookie or some guy that sits a year, plays next year in 2026. And that's kind of the path you take now, post Aaron Rodgers. And I think Aaron Glenn has made it very clear. Another reason why this shouldn't come as much of a surprise, Aaron Glenn made it clear the minute he started to speak on this subject at his introductory press conference that he wants a quarterback that is one of 53. Rodgers, as much as he tried to give to this organization, and as much as it just didn't work out, and there is still a lot of things that Rodgers did here that the Jets catered to him, and he was certainly a polarizing figure, and he comes with a lot of baggage. I talked about that a ton during the season, about a possibility of a Tyrod Taylor being under center next year over Rodgers, how it might be better for a rookie head coach, rookie GM, looking at the other side of it because of the things that Rodgers comes with. A lot of baggage, right? It's a lot. It's a lot. You feel kind of the locker room split on him. You feel some guys like him, some guys don't. What's Garrett Wilson's feeling on Rodgers? We've heard both sides of it. We heard they don't have problems. Then we've heard that Garrett Wilson and Rodgers don't get along. Obviously, we know Woody Johnson's relationship with Rodgers. So it's a lot. It's a lot. He's a polarizing figure. It's a lot goes into it. And Glenn and Muji seem to have made the choice to move along with their path and get things started their way and just completely remove what has taken place the last 2 seasons and not let it go on for another year and just start fresh right away. And that's what they decide to do here. And now we await to see who is under center in 2025. I think you look at some of the options, none of them are very thrilling. None of them are very exciting. That was the whole idea of bringing Rodgers back, even last year where he basically ranked as like the 20th ranked quarterback in the NFL. When you put all the numbers together, are you going to still get that production out of any other quarterback? Probably not. But you look at a guy like a Tyrod Taylor, he's under contract. I think that's most realistic. Tyrod, Justin Fields, though I do think Justin Fields is, I don't know if the Jets are going to be willing to go to the amount Justin Fields will probably get, especially if Pittsburgh. I don't think the Jets are going to want to, nor should they really get in a bidding war for Justin Fields. I think he'll be a little outpriced. Tyrod, out of all these quarterbacks, the advantage he has is he's under contract for 1 more year. They signed him to a 2-year deal. And now you have him under contract for 1 more year. It's a reasonable deal. You have him as your bridge and you move on in 2026. That seems most realistic. That's probably the best option, the most realistic option at this point. You could go down the Fields route. They do have the draft. Let's say they take a Jackson Dart or somebody like that. I'd be fine with that. Not so much, I don't think first round. I know a lot of people say, oh, first round, no way. But you want to take a day 2 quarterback. Either way, he's not going to start. He'd have to sit. Jameis Winston's an option. You're not going down the Kirk Cousins route, no way. Darnold, I know some Jeff fans are going to be like, oh, go after Darnold. That's not happening. I don't foresee that happening. Then again, I didn't see Rodgers happening, so maybe I'm wrong. But I think most likely you'll probably see a Tyrod Taylor, and we'll talk more about this next week and as the offseason rolls on here. But I think most likely you're looking at a Tyrod Taylor, Jordan Travis, and probably another rookie quarterback room in 2025. And in a perfect world, which I've said a lot, that I want this playoff streak over with. I want this drought done with. I want to compete for a playoff spot next year. I want to be competent next year. In a perfect world, Tyrod Taylor does what he did in Buffalo in 2017. Wins 9 games, win 10 games, gets to the playoffs. And then you find, in a perfect world, you find your franchise guy the next year in 2026, similar to the Bills, where they traded up for Allen. And now you look what the Bills have done, sustained success, which something that Glenn and Muji have talked a lot about, wanting sustained success. And I think that's another decision here about the Rodgers thing. I think bringing Rodgers back was with a clear frame of still trying to win in 2025. And I think when you put everything into it, you were never going to win a Super Bowl next year with Rodgers. I think Glenn and Muji realized that, and that's why you kind of get the head start now. So that's what's happening. Next up, you find out who's the quarterback. What happens there? What do they do? Seems like it's going to be Tyrod. Probably will be Tyrod. At least Jameis Winston. Look, Winston will be entertaining. Right? He throw 4 touchdowns and 3 picks every week, 300 plus yards. He'll be entertaining. It'll also make you want to pull your hair out often. So here we are. Here we are again. Just some of the cap numbers here for Rodgers, and I do have some stuff I want to talk about Devontae because it does seem similar to Rodgers. We talked about this the other day. Devontae will probably be out as well. Just the cap numbers. If the Jets designate Rodgers as a pre-June 1st cut, they just swallow the $49 million dead cap this year, which might be the course of action they take. Like completely swallow the dead cap, move on, fresh slate. Don't even worry about cap hit next year. That could happen. Or if they designate him as a post-June 1st cut, it'll be a $14 million cap hit this year and a $35 million cap hit in 2026. So either way, the Jets are going to have to get to that $49 million dead cap It's just a matter of, do they spread it across 2 years with the post-June 1st cut, or do they pre-June 1st cut and just $49 million, take it this year and completely and just move on? We'll see what happens, how that all ends up playing out. Now, as for the Davante Adams stuff, we saw this report as well from Ian Rappaport just a little bit ago. Davante Adams left his 2025 contract unchanged, and his $38.3 million cap number is untenable. He'd have to agree to a new deal to stay, and with Aaron Rodgers moving on, Adams likely will as well. Adams would like to be on the West Coast, I'm told. We mentioned that in our episode the other day when we heard that the Jets and Davante have had no conversations. Davante Adams' future here was going to hinge on Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers was back, Davante Adams was back. If Rodgers was gone, Davante Adams was gone. So Davante Adams is gone as well, which opens up, not only do you have to figure out quarterback now, but you also have to figure out your wide receiver situation, because now you look at this wide receiver room and it's Garrett Wilson and nobody, because Lazard's going to be out. They can get out of his contract after this year. Davante's gone. So it's Garrett. You've got Corley. You've got Gibson, a.k.a. you need to help Garrett Wilson out this off season, whether that's free agency, the draft, ideally both. There's a lot to work to do with that wide receiver core right now, because it is ugly outside of Garrett Wilson. So, and look, Muji, just back to the whole Rodgers thing. There's not much really to say on Davante. We all knew this was going to happen. And I think Davante is going to try and go to a team out west where he has a chance to win. At this point in his career, still trying to win a Super Bowl, right? 32 years old, nearing the tail end. I think he's going to go to a contender. That not being here. In terms of just going back to the quarterback, Muji is familiar with this type of situation with the whole cap and everything like that. And I think that also is why this wasn't much of a surprise, is you look at what Denver did with Russell Wilson. Right, they swallowed the cap hit last year. They're still paying him, 39 million last season for him to go in Pittsburgh and get paid what? I think he was making $1 million from Pittsburgh, like $38 million from the Broncos or whatever that they had to eat. They were still paying him all that money because of the terrible contract that they got themselves into. And they were still able to go 10-7 and make the playoffs last year. So Muji does have experience here as the assistant GM there. He saw George Patton, Sean Payton, and that organization be able to move on from a bad kind of all-in quarterback trade, which got them into cap, which put them into a difficult cap situation, and we're still able to be competitive that very next season. I'm not saying the Jets are going to go 10-7, but in a perfect world, Muji knows how to handle this, and they can still try and be competitive next year, even as you move on from Rodgers and you kind of move on from this whole all-in move that they made 2 years ago. Because Muji just experienced that with Russell Wilson in Denver, and now he gets to take this kind of face on in New York. And another reason why that's not a surprise, this isn't a surprise, is because Muji just saw it happen in Denver. Very similar situation he's taking over here. Just two different quarterbacks. So, nothing official, but it's over. And I think something official will come out here over the next couple of days. Whether it's a statement, something like that, it'll happen officially. Look at the Aaron Rodgers tenure. It's a rough one. When he went on McAfee and said, I intend to play for the New York Jets, I think we all expected to be talking about something totally different this time of year than moving on. I mean, heck, at the beginning of this season, I think we all expected or all hoped that instead of, if you would have told me February 9th, right, Super Bowl Sunday, we'd be talking about the New York Jets releasing Aaron Rodgers, or not releasing Aaron Rodgers, but deciding to move on from Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I wouldn't have called you crazy because that's the Jets, but just going back to the beginning of the season, Rodgers talked about, right, our goal is to go to we feel we're one of the 8 teams that can get to New Orleans and all this stuff. And the fan base felt the same way. And here we are, Super Bowl Sunday, talking about them moving on. So it's a tenure that ended short in 2023, 4 snaps in with a torn Achilles, and then translated to 5-12 last year. Ugly. And led to a coach getting fired, a general manager getting fired during the middle of last season. No playoffs, of course. A disappointment. And also some what ifs. Like, he doesn't go down. The torn Achilles ended it all. Unfortunately, 4 snaps in, the whole Super Bowl possibilities with Rodgers ended that. The second Leonard Floyd brought him down, which sucks to think about, but it kind of is the way it is. It was never going to be the same. It wasn't the same after the Achilles. And here we are. So, got to trust Glenn, got to trust Muji. You have to. You can't kill these two guys for wanting to move on from Rodgers and starting fresh. You can't give up on Glenn and Muji just because of the decision they made. I understand both sides of it. I understand this move. You've got to trust these two guys that just got put in place and hope that they get this thing figured out and get a future option at this position within the next 2 seasons, whether that's somebody this year that sits or whether it's somebody next year, which is probably more realistic, in a 2026 class that has a lot of potential. This class, not very good. 2026 class, different story. So that'll do it. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Your thoughts on the Aaron Rodgers moving on, or Jets moving on from Aaron Rodgers. We'll have a lot more of this throughout the week. I'm sure, official statements will come out. I'm sure we'll get, the whole what Rodgers' future is, the whole June 1st cut, post-June 1st cut. I think we'll probably get more clarity here coming up on who the quarterback will be, whether the Jets roll with Tyrod, who's already under contract, whether they try and make a move in free agency for a Fields, a Winston, somebody like that. A lot still has to happen. Super Bowl Sunday, once the clocks hit 000 tonight, it's officially the offseason and things really start to ramp up. So we'll be here through it all. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Agree with moving on from Rodgers? Disagree? What are your thoughts? Let me know. And until next time, JETS, 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 Jets.